Hello, folks. This is Ruth Ann Fullers, mayor right here in Newton City Hall. Hello to folks online and to those who are here in person. This is actually a really great night for the city of Newton. More than 30 years ago, Kay Kahn, who was one of our state representatives of the time, started working with Barney Frank on getting accessible and frequent service at our commuter rail stations. And A+ to Kay for persistence. Thrilled that I joined in this work along with so many others. I think of City Councilor Susan Albright, who literally has Kay's back here in the audience. She has all along. I want to do a particular shout out also to Congressman Jake Auchincloss, with Dana Hansen always at his right arm, who also for years, I remember when the congressman and Dana and I were in the governor's office with Charlie Baker working on this project. Maura Healy, Phil Eng, Angel Rodriguez from the MBTA and the State House deserve our thanks. A thank you to Greg Ansaldi, IT here in Newton, and Hattie Kerwin-Derrick, who are helping us tonight. I saw Jen Martin here, there she is, our transportation planner in the planning department. She's here in person. I saw Ned Codd online, our director of transportation. Thank you to so many city councilors who are part of this tonight. We have our president of the city council and mayor-elect Mark Laredo right in the front seat. We're glad you're right in the front seat. I mentioned Susan Albright already, Allison Leary, Julia Maliki, Pam Wright, and online Andrea Kelly and Tariq Lucas. A shout out to Emily Norton, former city councilor who lives right in this neighborhood too, who's joining us tonight. We are going to get an accessible commuter rail station in Newtonville with 4 elevators and double-sided platforms so we can also have more frequent service. We will not, I know Mayor-elect Laredo and so many others, including me, will not forego mentioning West Newton and Auburndale in the years ahead, but we're thrilled to have this fully funded, and it doesn't depend on federal funds, which is such a godsend in this time period. You will hear from Steve Stock in particular, our project manager. Please say thank you to Robert Fung and be nice to him. He's our moderator from the MBTA tonight. He's going to be directing all of us as we ask questions. We Newtonians thankfully always ask lots of good questions, and I'm sure tonight will be no exception. But we're moving ahead. I think you'll hear from Steve that we may even have shovels in the ground next year on some of the early site work. And the big news is they've actually selected the construction manager at risk. So that means it's moving forward. And we'll be finishing up 30% design pretty soon. I think I'm handing it over to Robert. We're so grateful to have such a great team from the MBTA who's shepherded us all the way to today, and we'll be joined at the hips for the next 3-4 years, I know. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to thank Mayor Fuller for the warm introduction. I'd like to extend our appreciation to the mayor, her team, and being able to utilize the space tonight, and welcoming the MBTA to join this important discussion. Also want to thank everyone for joining us both virtually and in person. My name is Robert Fung. I work with the Capital Engagement team at the T. I'll be serving as the moderator, and for this evening, I'm joined by MBTA project manager Steve Stock, who will be leading the project updates for tonight's Newtonville public meeting. Steve will walk us through the presentation. We kindly ask that you hold all your comments and questions towards the very end. Tonight's meeting is scheduled to run to 7 p.m. I will now hand it over to Steve, who will present tonight's project updates.
Perfect. All right, thank you, Robert, and thank everyone for joining us tonight. So tonight we'll be giving you an update on the Newtonville Station project. And our agenda will start with project history, touch on overview of the project for those that aren't familiar. Yep. A update of the project, scope, project timeline, and next steps. All right, now we're going to run through the project history for those of you that aren't familiar. Originally, this was part of a 3-station program that included West Newton and Auburndale stations, and that was previously brought to 75% design. That project was planned to be procured using design bid build, traditional delivery method. And at the 75% level, the estimate unconstrained, including soft costs for the program, was over $250 million. This was deemed not viable due to funding constraints and the available funding. So this was paused. Subsequent decision was to proceed with Newtonville Station as a standalone with the design incorporating future regional rail, more frequent service with shorter train sets, and this was established with a project budget of $50 million, and this would be performed using construction manager at risk versus traditional design bid build that the MBTA frequently used in the past. Yep. All right, here we go. I'm going to give you a project overview for those of you that aren't familiar. The MBTA Newtonville, the existing station, obviously is not accessible. Plan to reconstruct the entire station, and the new station will be built in accordance with all current Massachusetts Architectural Access Board standards, federal ADA standards, and MBTA standards for design and constructions, with any exceptions by waiver. The station design and construction will be constructed to meet the goals of, as we mentioned previously, regional rail and maintain connection with the MBTA bus network. As we previously mentioned, the project budget is $50 million with a schedule to be determined at the completion of the 30% design level. Move to project update. The $50 million we talked about, that has been identified and is allocated for this project, so it does exist. The 30% design draft has been submitted to the MBTA for review, and the construction manager procurement process has completed with Consigli Construction, the chosen firm, with pre-construction services underway, and the NTP was actually issued on December 1st of this year. Coordination with MassDOT and for I-90 Pike access has commenced, along with coordination with MBTA operations for access to the right-of-way on the Framingham Worcester Line. And just going to run through the scope of the station. So to the left, you'll see Walnut Street. The existing set of stairs that exist down to the station now, that is planned to be replaced with a street-level plaza alongside Washington Street. You'll see the elevator and transition plaza. On the left, alongside Washington Street, there'll be, to enable the construction of the platform, there'll be a sheeting wall put alongside the back of the existing parking area that exists along Washington Street now. and also along the pike. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the existing platform, backs right up to the pike within a couple feet behind the platform. So you're going to have a new barrier wall built between the new station and the pike. To the west, the existing stairs to Harvard Street will remain, but those will become emergency egress only. So really everything shifts to a new plaza proposed off of Washington Street. And we show that stairs for egress, elevators, and be built in accordance with all accessibility standards. So you're going to include the typical like closed circuit television, visual and audio aids like VMS signs that you see at any newer commuter rail station. Move to project timeline. So we were able to put together a timeline, and obviously this is pending input from the construction manager as they just received NTP. But first row, we show start of pre-construction services, which that's actually started December 1st of this year. Currently, they are reviewing the 30% design and preparing an estimate, after which we will reconcile that with the engineer's estimate. After completion of that, we will begin work towards an early action enabling package with procurement of that plan for it's called summer of 2026, and proposing to start early action construction somewhere between summer and fall, Q3 of 2026. While the early action package is underway for construction, we'll actually be finishing design for certain elements of the station. That'll be mostly the above ground portion. So you'll have an early action package getting out of the ground and any utility relocations required on the railroad right away, showing design running to the end of next year, after which we would procure the remaining items with construction running to 2029. And obviously these are all pending further coordination that we're just beginning now, along with input from the CM. So next steps, we're going to be putting together a project management plan that will outline our community engagement plan and communication moving forward. Continue coordination with the City of Newton. As you mentioned, the CM will be performing a 30% review of the existing draft 30% design, and we'll be reconciling the estimate. And after approval and finalization of the 30% level, we'll be moving to 75%, while also anticipating to begin and finalize design on an early action package with a called an IGMP. It's an interim guaranteed maximum price for the early action work scope, as we talked about, mid next year, and showing right now starting that Q3 of 2026. All right, now we'll move to Q&A in the hybrid meeting. If you're in the virtual meeting, please raise your hand and send questions or comments in the chat. If you're joining by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. And if you're here with us in person, just raise your hand and we will get you the mic to bring questions.
Before we transition directly into the Q&A, I would like to announce if any elected officials or Congress like to speak on my behalf. We have a gentleman right here, elected mayor of Newton, Mark Lorati. Please come to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be brief. We need to move forward with this project. We need to move forward with this project promptly. No project is perfect. Let's be really clear about it. We are never, ever going to get to perfection. I'm sure each one of us in this room could figure out things we do differently or perhaps maybe better, maybe not with the project. but we got to get the work done. Mayor Fuller, I think, deserves tremendous credit for pushing this project along. Representative Khan, you have been a superstar in trying to move this forward. I know Congressman Auchincloss, who's represented by District Director Dana Hansen, who's here, has been instrumental. Of course, my colleagues from Ward 2, current Councilor Susan Albright, former Councilor Emily Norton. I see Councilors Leary and Wright and Maliki from Ward 1 and 3, all of whom have a direct and distinct interest in this. Look, the bottom line is this. We get the project going, we get it done quickly, we get it done well, hopefully we get it done on or under budget, that's always a good thing, and then we move on to the next stations, because commuter rail is critical to the future, not only of Newton, not only of Metro West, but to the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So thank you so much.
It will be her and Hanson, her and then you. Those are and then you. I got you. Okay. What's your name?
Jack Porter.
Jack Porter. Okay. And we have one more speaker. City Councilor Dana Hansen. Please come up for a brief moment.
Thanks for the promotion to City Councilor. My name's Dana Hansen. I work for Congressman Jake Auchincloss. And I did just want to thank Mayor Fuller and the MBTA and, of course, State Representative Kay Khan and everybody whose fingerprints have been on this important project over the years. Congressman Auchincloss was delighted to be able to secure $7 million in funding. So it was federal funding. It is encumbered in this project. It is not negotiable at this point. It is all in, and it is happening. And we are delighted for this partnership and to see this incredible first project to make our commuter rails accessible in Newton carry forward. So thank you so much, and really appreciate the presentation tonight. Thanks.
All right, and we'll now open the floor for Q&A. City Councilor, before we open the Q&A. Okay. Feel free to.
So two questions. You called it a plaza on Washington Street. Will it have a place for a coffee shop in there?
I would not expect it would have a place for a coffee shop. It wouldn't be a building per se. It would be similar to some newer commuter rail stations. You might have, a waiting area and benches, but I would not expect
Okay. That's a pity, but okay. And one other, over these years that we've been discussing this, we've been talking about the possibility of you guys building a sound wall as part of this project for the Washington Street folks. What's the likelihood that we can make that happen?
Currently, there's no plans for a sound wall, but we'll look into the history of that and for inclusion.
Okay, I'd be happy to give you more of a history when you're ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jen Martin, City of Newton Planning Department. We're so excited to have this station quickly and accessibly. As the project moves forward, what is the next point at which the community should expect to hear from your team? I saw that that's something that you're still working on laying out. I'm wondering how frequently you think you'll be communicating with the community.
Yes, I would say we'll be reaching out to the city departments, within the next month, and then I would say we'll be back to the public at least a month before we start any work on site. So I would
Thank
expect
you.
Thank you.
Does this sound okay? Too loud? Too soft?
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay, I'm Jack Porter, 79 Walnut Street. I live 2 blocks away. And I just wanted to point out, it's going to be a beautiful project, but it'll impact. And I'll point out 2 ways or 3 ways. there's two different kinds of people that take this commuter. One, the people who go in the morning, come back at night. But there are people like myself who travel a lot, who go into the city and take planes, buses, well, to the airport, and go to South Station. And so I have a stroller, and I can walk 2 blocks. But if I have to go to West Newton or Auburndale, that's too far for me. I may have to take a Lyft or an Uber. So one suggestion that I have is a bus that's right there on Washington Street, and there is already one bus that does. It will go straight downtown. I saw how you worked the buses just 2 days ago because you were doing construction between Kenmore Square and Back Bay. Fantastic job, wonderful buses. They played music, jazz, which you should have on your commuter rails and everything, and they have leather seats, and it's wonderful. But it's only going to be 2 weeks, thank God, okay. But those buses are so important, and the people who are going to be working in the cold, they did a great job downtown, between that area, and I'm sure we'll need people there to direct people to the buses. But if you have those buses, that's very important. The second thing, when we go to West Newton or other places, a little closer? Well, it's a small room. I don't know. People can't hear me. Okay, all right. I forgot what I was going to say. I would say that 70 to 80% of the people who drive and park are from Newton. So this idea that outsiders are using it, that's not right. We should, as Newton citizens, we should be open and tolerant of people parking, etc. And also police. We should not have ticketing within 2 or 3 blocks of those places, because we're going to have a lot of people, double, triple, in West Newton who can, and they're going to be parking. We have to know where to park, and people have to be tolerant of their parking. So we have the tolerance at the West Newton and Auburndale, and we have the buses, and I think that will help. And of course, have some music on those commuters.
We will we'll check with the bus service
Thank you, sir.
Delivery team. Thank you for the input.
We'll get to everyone very briefly. Just keep in mind, we're going to have questions be under 3 minutes, just because we want to give everyone a fair chance to answer. We want to also acknowledge some of our questionnaires through Zoom that might have any questions as well.
So first question, is the station anticipated to close for some or all of the construction?
At this point in time, that has not been determined. As we continue the pre-con with the CM, we will be back with that. But at this point in time, it is not yet determined.
Awesome. All right. Who's raising their hand over there? Awesome. Getting over there. Hello.
Hi. Thank you very much. I'm former Representative Kay Khan and have been working on this project a very long time with so many of the folks who are here tonight. I really want to thank everybody, including the MBTA. So I didn't really feel clear about the timeline, and I'm just wondering if there's any way to maybe put it online or to, so that we get a better sense of exactly what's going to happen. Seemed, I didn't get a sense of exactly how that was going to work.
Yeah, and I think right now, during the pre-con phase, that's what we're going through now. We can put the timeline, obviously, that we have right now online. But there'll be we expect within a couple months a developed schedule with, more defined periods and
Right.
time.
I mean, that's fine, but if we could have
Yeah.
some sense of
Yep.
the timeline, that would be helpful.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I'd just like to address the timeline, just to get to your answer a little more clarity. And I think the CM at risk process is different than the typical design bid build process where you design the entire project and then bid it out. So what we've done is we've brought a construction manager on. The delivery process is called CM at risk. It allows us to start work sooner than the overall design has been completed. And because this project was basically rescoped and redeveloped to meet a $50 million budget, we've we've basically redesigned the station using many of the components that were in the last design, but in a different configuration. So the timeline that we explained going into this spring, so we're really, the timeline he was explaining of what we're going to do over the next 6 to 9 months, which is finish the 30% design. And what that entails is reconciling the cost estimate to make sure we stay on budget, and if we're not on budget, to take a look at ways we can modify the project to stay on budget, but also to develop a very detailed construction schedule. What we showed up there was a basic timeline just to give people perspective as far as when they'll start to see things happen. And really, we could be doing early action construction on site as early as the end of 2026, and that would be, utility location and potentially building some retaining walls along the Washington Street side of the station to allow the construction of the overall station. So there might be some construction work starting at the end of the year, and then the timeline was also, meant to indicate that the construction probably won't be completed, the overall station, till late 2028 and second quarter of 2029. That's just trying to give a perspective on the timeline. The construction manager, who's just been given NTP, will be developing a total project schedule, and the next time we meet with the community, we'll be able to provide more detail as far as the various activities you're going to see and when you'll see them going forward. Does that answer your question?
It helps some. Seems like a long time.
This is going to be a very complicated project. We have to maintain service while we're constructing the project. We have to take into consideration impacts we'll have on I-90, as well as impacts we'll have on the neighborhood. And these are all things that we're working on right now. The construction manager is going to be working with our railroad operations folks. MassDOT will be meeting with the city engineer to talk about work hour limitations and such. That all needs to be built into the schedule as to how long it's going to take us to build the station. If we were out in the cornfield in Iowa, that's how we refer to projects. Cornfield in Iowa, we're not impacting anybody and no one's impacting us. You can build things in a fairly efficient, relatively quick manner, but when you're in such a complicated operating environment like on a commuter rail, things can go a lot slower than a lot of people would like to see happen, but that's unfortunate, okay?
My name is Emily Norton. I'm a former city councilor. I represented this part of Newton for 10 years. I live a few blocks away from the project site. Been there on and off since 1974. So super, super excited about the project. I commute from this commuter rail stop. I wanted to give a little bit more context to Councilor Albright's request related to a sound barrier. It's not random. If it sounded random, folks I'm sure know that it was controversial when the Mass Pike came through Newton in the 60s. Folks who were around then are still around now, many of them, and comment that they were promised a sound barrier, which didn't happen. Fast forward many years, when the Trio project was built at the corner of Walnut and Washington Street, there were mitigation funds supplied, and the neighbors were asked, hey, what would you like these mitigation funds to be spent on? They said a sound wall, a wooden, attractive sound wall. As you all know, the project area has a chain link fence, which is pretty crappy looking right now, does not block pollution, does not block the noise, and we thought, oh yeah, okay, we can do that. And then it was like, wait, should we do that? Because wouldn't the MBTA tear it down for this project? And especially related to having the project be respectful of the neighbors. This part of Newton has seen a lot of density, which sometimes was welcome, sometimes less so, but I would argue that this part of Newton is doing our part, and more is coming in terms of helping with the regional issues related to the need for more housing. It would be very powerful and meaningful, I think, to this neighborhood if you could see your way to include doesn't have to be expensive or fancy, but some sort of sound barrier, especially in between Walnut and Lowell. So there was many years, and like I said, we literally promised you that we would talk to you about this when the project comes in.
And so I did not introduce myself before, and I apologize for that. My name's... I'm sorry. I didn't introduce myself when I first got up here. My name's Chris Brennan. I'm Chief of Capital Delivery for the MBTA. As far as the sound wall is concerned, we'll address it with MassDOT. I just want to set expectations, you know, at the right level here. $50 million seems like a lot of money. Unfortunately, it's not as much money as, it doesn't go quite as far as we'd like. So I think there's going to be some decisions that have to be made with respect to this project. I'm not too sure where the sound wall falls with responsibility on the Mass Pike side versus an MBTA responsibility as far as funding. We'll pursue what commitments have been made so that we understand them and we properly address them. And if we have to bring our partners in from MassDOT to address your concerns, we'll certainly do that. But, you know, that's the best we can do for a response today. Okay.
Hi, Julia Malachy, Ward 3 Councilor from West Newton. I am curious, when this is completed and usable, how much more frequent will the service be at Newtonville? And will residents of West Newton and Auburndale also get more frequent service, or would they have to go to Newtonville to get the extra trains?
Yeah, hand it off to Anthony DiDomenicus.
Hi there. Anthony DiDomenicus, Senior Director from Railroad Capital Programs and Railroad Operations at the MBTA. So at this present time, we don't have any plans to immediately increase or reduce service. However, per our rail modernization efforts, you know, we're hopeful that we can. We're designing and hopefully constructing the station to align with our rail modernization goals to increase frequencies on the Worcester Line in the future and throughout the entire system. There is no defined schedule as of right now as to when that would start, but I think that the fact that we're designing the station, you know, to align with that vision is kind of testament to how we're committed to that goal. I think it's too, like I said, there's no immediate plans to increase or reduce, and I think at this time we're still doing a lot of operational simulation modeling, infrastructure needs analyses to determine what infrastructure is needed to run that kind of service. So it's still early on in the process, but there will be future updates at a later time. So I hope that's sufficient.
So to make it fair for everyone, we'll also be asking a question from Zoom from somebody who asked the question, is there a plan to purchase new hybrid two-car commuter trains for this line?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
For sure. The question is there a plan to purchase a new hybrid two-car commuter train for this line?
Not at this present time. The only thing that is publicly available that we've disclosed, I think at the MBTA board meetings, some of you may have seen that we're currently procuring new equipment for the Fairmont line. So we're starting with phase 1 of our rail modernization program on the Fairmont line, and we plan to roll it out on future lines as time progresses and as funding becomes available, but currently not on the Worcester line.
Thank you. All right, and I'll switch it over back to the crowd. Anybody have any more questions? All right.
When will we actually see a 30 or 70% design? Okay, sorry. When do we actually get to see a 30 or 70% design?
The next community meeting, we should be able to provide more on the design after we're done with the...
And is that next fall?
No, we would plan to be back before we start construction, so that would be probably in the spring of next year.
And, you know, we'll have more to present once we have an approved design. We don't want to show the design in progress when decisions haven't been made and we're not sure what we can afford. But once we have information that would be valuable to roll out to the public, we'll be back. We don't anticipate it being as far out as the fall. We will, in the next month and a half, be working. Let's get past the holidays. So January, February timeframe, we'll start communicating out to the public a cadence of informational meetings to make sure that everyone's kept abreast of not just the design, but the anticipated upcoming impacts that the project could have going forward.
First of all, I just want to express that beyond the accessibility, which is fantastic, I think this has the opportunity to transform Newton maybe in like no other project that's happened in our lifetime. So fantastic, and for the good, obviously. The Turnpike has had a different impact. Just so I understand, conceptually, the plan is that there will be some sort of bridge over the tracks to something between two platforms, and then stairs and an elevator down from that space?
Correct. It would be a plaza on Washington Street and linked by a bridge to elevators on both sides.
Can't happen soon enough.
Thank you. For another question coming from Zoom, what is the projected 4 levels of service for the station? I'll repeat that question. What is the projected 4 levels of service for the station?
4 levels of service?
Yes. 4 levels of service.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the question is asking about what are the current and future service levels that are projected?
Yes.
So not to kind of repeat the previous answer, but at this current time, there are no plans to add or reduce service, but per our rail modernization efforts, we're hoping to increase frequencies on the line. And again, we're designing the station and constructing in a way that will align with that future mission, or that future goal.
And it will go from single-sided platform to dual-sided.
Correct. Right.
They can't hear you, Tom, unless you
Oh, I apologize.
All right. Another follow-up question from Zoom. Can you provide an itemized list of expenses that total 50 mil?
At this time, we're still working with the CM to put together the budget, so we'll have more to offer in the spring. But that includes construction, soft costs. That would include force account, and that's the total roll-up. But when we come back in the spring, we'll have more info on that.
Thank you. All right. I will continue to pass the mic in person. Follow-up question? All right.
This is about the levels of service. So maybe the person who is answering the question about levels. So right now, as you know, we only have 1 track, so we don't have many trains stopping in Newton. They go right past, whizzing past. So now when we have 2 tracks, won't we have 2 platforms? Won't we have all the trains that pass back and forth stopping in Newton? Because that was the point of this whole project.
I'm not in operations, but I understand we work together quite frequently. So a lot of these questions about what the service is going to be once the station is finally constructed, they're very premature because the operational planning for this line is going to change not just because of the station, but in terms of moving towards more of a regional rail service. We can't make a commitment today what the changes in that service is going to be. All the authority wants the people to know is that we're not planning on decreasing service to Newton as a result of the station being built. There are going to be opportunities. There are opportunities to increase service, but those questions and those answers are going to come out in the next couple of years as the station's developed. And again, as service changes up, and this is a fairly busy line, as the service schedules change for the entire line, not just for this particular
So I just want to send this message to the team that the whole point of these projects that were proposed at the 3 stations and now this one only is to improve service in Newton. And it wouldn't be possible to decrease service, frankly. That's not possible. So please it is central to this project, as far as all of us are concerned, to increase access to the service.
And that's duly noted. That's duly noted. And we will come back in future meetings with more definitive responses to some of these concerns.
Okay.
But we came prepared to talk about, we're mostly, project people, so we don't want to get over our skis with respect to some of these operations concerns. Even Anthony, who is the operation, is part of, he's a director of capital projects in railroad operations, but we'll get these concerns responded to by people that have more.
Just as long as you know that everybody's expectation in this room and online and everybody in Newton that lives on the north side of town was that we would have better service because of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Any more questions right now? Right here.
Thank you. Well, I'm not an engineer, but I'm just trying to figure out if we have 2 tracks in Newtonville, what happens to those tracks? Does it continue on 2 tracks through West Newton and Auburndale? Or I guess I'm not clear how that's going to work.
So the existing outbound would typically be on those tracks. Those are probably the trains you see go by that don't stop now. So those would still continue as they are currently, as expected.
So it goes back to 1 track? Is that?
No, that's double the whole line, correct? Yeah.
Wait, if I could pile on, Transit Matters did a report like 10 years ago, and they said until there's double tracks all along the Worcester-Framingham line, our service would be restricted because periodically they have to switch, and you can't have people getting off on the outside rails, crossing over to get to the station while another train's coming the other direction. So they were very clear that until all 3 of these stations are done with double platforms, and apparently we're the only ones in the entire commuter rail system that don't have double platforms, until that time we would never be able to have additional service. And in fact, you all had to, and I'm not trying to sound critical, I'm just saying this is the path we've been on. When you were going to do the Auburndale station, and we didn't learn until months into it, that it wasn't going to include double tracks, and we would still have to have this switching going back and forth. That kind of blew that whole thing up, and then we sort of restarted. So for those who've been in these meetings, that's our understanding, is that until you do all 3 stations with double platforms on both sides, and for that reason, folks in Framingham and Ashland and Worcester actually have a stake in what happens at all 3 Newton stops, and they will all benefit from your ability to have more frequent service when you do all 3 stops. I understand, obviously, there's budgetary reasons, but I think it's important that if that's the case, that we be transparent with folks in terms of their expectations.
Okay. Noted, and we'll check with operations. And Anthony, I know part of that is that part related to interlocking projects that are ongoing today. So we'll be better prepared in the spring for those questions.
All right. I will leave the last question over here for this gentleman.
Thank you. Harry Sanders, Newtonville Depot on Bowers Street, overlooking the Pike. We find on Bowers Street a possibility to have parking, the full length of it on the north side of Bowers. I wonder if parking considerations are being considered at this time.
Impacts the parking?
Yes.
Impacts the existing parking?
Where you have intermodal transportation to the new station, there'll be a greater need for people from further distances for long-term parking. I wonder if that's being addressed in your design plans.
We'll get an answer on that. I don't think we're not planning on the existing parking area along Washington Street changing, but obviously that's still under development. We could take that into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you. As we'll be wrapping up, the last question. Do you have the slide? No. Yeah, we'll just end it with the slide. Beautiful. So if you have any additional questions or concerns, please look at the QR code on the screen. We also have additional sheets on paper where you could also scan it through via phone, camera, and as well those who are viewing, tuning in virtually, please leave your questions in the chat room as well. And the link of the form will be shared online as well. But thank you for everyone for participating and being here tonight. We will look forward to seeing you at future meetings as well. Thank you.